Hey guys! Today we'll be talking about the first part of Bands of Mourning, which consists of the prologue and chapters 1 through 4. I was entertained and very intrigued to continue reading. I'll have to give you that. So let's start with the prologue. We see Wax at the village, learning his old name Asinthu or Asinthu, I don't know the exact pronunciation, and he meets his sister, or he has met his sister already, of course, but he meets his sister and some of her friends, and they're going outside the village, showing her rebellious side. There's also a friend named Forge that goes with them, and he's a coin shot. He goes to his grandma, seeing a constable there, and grabbing. The constable leaves after a discussion and leaves a bullet as a warning, which Wax takes. He gets busted, of course, by his grandmother, and then he has to run away. It's something about arson, I think, being a secondary crime that the constable said. In the next scene we see Forge in an abandoned building with a 5-year-old boy being tied up, and Forge says he just wants to see what's inside. They have an allomantic battle, both steel pushing on that bullet, but Wax has a great idea and actually pushes on another part of the bullet, making the bullet fire. Everybody hears that explosion. They run into the building, seeing, of course, Wax with that boy and Forge with that bullet in his head. Makes people scared, to which Wax decides that he'll run away, he'll leave the village, knowing that he will probably be shunned for the rest of his days. Terrace people hate violence, and Terrace people also mistrust Allomancers, especially Twinborn, because we know what happened with the Lord Ruler, and they already also know what happened with the Lord Ruler. 28 years later, we see Wax and Wayne performing a raid with the police force, the constables, and some bandits. They're no match for our friends here. They slaughter them and then they go away. Actually, they have to go to Wax's marriage, and some guy in a brown suit meets up with him, asking for a moment of Wax's time. He refuses, I think, and he just flies away. Instead of taking the carriage with Wayne and Condra, Wax just steel pushes himself to his to the venue, to the water tower, actually next to the venue where he's about to be married to our friend Steris. When Wax arrives at the wedding venue, he gets dressed, he gets changed. We see him and Steris having a little nice interaction here. He's shown to feel very fond of her because she's actively telling him about everything she's planned for, including delays and disturbances, because she knows Wax and Wayne, of course. She knows they're always up to something. Yeah, she's got what's the word? Contingency plans for when things go sideways. After that, we see them actually beginning the wedding ceremony. Wax gets cold feet. He continues on, but we see his inner struggle. Because marrying Steris actually means letting go of Lessie. Something he still has a lot of trouble with. He gets saved by the bell, in a manner of speaking, because someone, we don't know who, someone has sabotaged the water tower and it comes crashing down on the wedding venue, and it was a survivor's church, meaning that they have a glass ceiling, a literal glass ceiling, to see the mists. So it just crashes right through and everybody gets soaking wet. Wax is just in time to grab Steris and steel push himself away. And there's the end of chapter 1, which ends on quite a high note. I loved chapter 1. I love the prologue as well. I especially love the prologue even, because I've been longing for some Terrace history. We even learned that even Terracemen can be violent. And we learned that Wax has always had some fine control over his steel pushing ability. He has a steel bubble, something which not a lot of people are able to do. But we also see him actively thinking about that steel bullet when it's in front of him. I don't know if it's steel, but that metal bullet. And we see his one line of that bullet suddenly splitting into 3 lines to that same bullet, which means he can actively push on different parts of the same bullet, of the same metal. This makes him a fearsome opponent, of course, you know, having such fine control. And in the final few sentences, we see the Wax, as we all know him, the House Lord / Vigilante. And on to chapter 1. I think the interaction with Steris was amazing. Not amazing, but you know, it was great. It shows that the progress they have made in Shadows of Self, especially at the end of Shadows of Self, hasn't been lost. On the contrary, they've even grown closer to each other, helping him heal after killing Leslie. And as usual with Wax and Wayne involved, there's always mayhem. It's a great beginning to, I hope, a good part 1 of, I hope, a great book. On to chapter 2, which begins, of course, with the aftermath of that water tower crashing through. It shows us that Wax wasn't quick enough, in the sense that both him and Steris are soaking wet. He pushed up, of course, but he forgot to push backwards as well. Everybody's soaking wet. Nobody's injured, luckily, except for one High Lord who has a slight concussion, something like that. Nothing major, it's a minor issue. The water tower's legs were actually broken, but we're not sure if it's on purpose. It's not mentioned yet. But while Wax is consoling Steris for, you know, ruining the ceremony, she tells him that she has a backup plan. She has a second venue planned in about 2 months from that date. But he has to admit that he's glad it's put off. The postponement actually will probably help him dealing with it. He does mention, though, that he will go through with the wedding, which pleasantly surprises Steris, of course, because she had not expected it at all. In a separate scene of chapter 2, we see we see Wayne and Marasi having an interaction. Marasi is searching for Wayne because, you know, Wayne not being there at Wax's ceremony, something's wrong, and she finds him in the kitchens acting like a chef and terrifying the staff. She also mentions the loose bolts she saw on that water tower legs, and Wayne actually admits it a bit later on, that it was him that paid off some guys to sabotage the water tower. He encourages Marasi also to go after Wax, you know, having the ceremony put off now. He thinks she should just swoop in and take him, but she refuses, telling she has moved on, which prompts Wax, which prompts Wayne. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep getting them mixed up. Which prompts Wayne to reveal that he will be trying to move on from Renette as well, showing a bit of character growth, and they have a toast. At the end, the Congress shows up again, telling them that Wax has declined to do the mission for him, so to speak, and he's asking Marasi to go in his place. He also asks her what she knows of investiture and identity, 2 words that will mean nothing to them, but will mean probably a lot to Cosmere readers. This chapter was quite good, quite short as well. You know, Wayne's back to shenanigans again, as, well, no surprise there. Also a great interaction between Wax and Steris. I do love how they're actively growing closer without being actually in love with each other. The bit of banter between Wayne, didn't get them mixed up this time, between Wayne and Marasi also gives me a bit of hope, because with some heartfelt emotion included, this might imply or foreshadow a romance in the future. I don't know, I'm not sure. I haven't read the book completely yet. It does seem to fit, you know, the sketchy, quirky lawman attracting his opposite in the pristine and serious constable. But speaking about magic, you know, the Condra of Vendel or Vendrell, his name pops up later. The Condra speaks about magic, and magic being connected to a person, and metaminds being connected to persons, but also being able to be stored, which is something that might imply there being a loophole. We'll see in the next chapter, I think. So let's continue on to chapter 4. No, chapter 3. You know, with the prologue, I was counting prologue as chapter 1, but you know, chapter 3, but the fourth part of part 1. Wax goes home and he finds the gang, Marasi, Wayne, and Milan, sitting there in his house with Vendel. That Condra, the brown-suited man, introduces himself as Vendel. Vendel brings Wax up to speed, about asking Marasi to take his place, and he sets up an evanoscope, which is another word for a slide projector. He says Harmony wants to allow people to survive what's coming. We don't know, but Marasi suspects Trell is involved. She has looked into Trell after the previous book. We all know that. It's been mentioned in the epilogue. And they discuss the spiritual part of ferrochemy, or ferrochemical abilities. Vendel explains also how investiture and identity work, essentially showing that there is a possibility, or confirming our thought that there is a loophole, in that sense that in normal circumstances, metal minds of one person are not able to be used by another person, but when they store their identity, they actually are a blank slate, so there is no identity to which the investiture can be connected, which most likely will mean something along the lines of I can make something which can be used by anything or by anyone. He also mentions other possibilities, including hemalurgy, and of course the Bands of Mourning, the title of this book, with the Lord Ruler. With the evanoscope, they see photographs of murals and statues and other stuff depicting both the Bands of Mourning and our old friend, the Lord Ruler, which were made, or the pictures were made by another Condra named Relure, and he has returned missing a spike, so they have trouble asking him. Well, they don't have trouble asking him, they have trouble getting a sane response, because we have all seen with Leslie what happens when you remove a spike from a Condra. They turn insane. Vendel sets up the quest to go find the missing spike, and while they're at it, of course, find the Bands of Mourning. Wax refuses, initially, but then he sees a picture of, he sees not a picture of her, but he sees his sister in one of the pictures being dragged away by two men, implying that she's a prisoner or that she's a hostage, something like that. But that's the end of chapter 3. I think it's nice to see Wax's mansion being used as headquarters, especially when he doesn't know it. It means that they do accept him as a leader, even if it's implicitly. It gives him that actual leader vibe, where are we going? Oh yeah, let's go to Wax's house. It's not only the biggest, but it's also the headquarters. And the slide projector is a great example of how technology is advancing slow but steadily. And as is usual in part 1, the MacGuffin is introduced, the quest or the item that they will be looking for, with the small side quests being the Bands of Mourning, which will probably turn vice versa, the Bands of Mourning being the actual quest and the spike being the secondary quest. But the most important part of the chapter is that the loophole is confirmed, turning the world of ferrochemical and allomantic abilities upside down and inside out at the same time. At its core, it's hemalurgy without killing. It's transferring abilities that are being stored in something metal, instead of spikes being metal mines, but tomato, tomato, same thing. And it gets attached to another, from one person to another. So the person with the original ability fills the metal mind, and it gets attached to a person with another ability or with no ability at all, and he can use it. So the power gets transferred, but without the killing. The big difference, or the main difference, is that once the metal mind is tapped out, of course, they won't be able to fill it anymore, I think, because they won't have, of course, I'm sure they won't be able to fill it anymore because they don't have any ferrochemical abilities. They can just draw upon them because it's been stored by other people. There's also, lastly, chapter 4, which is Act 3 of part 1. It's not quick because there's 2 hours in between chapter 3 and 4. In which, Wax has probably made his bags and stuff like that. But he has decided he has to go there, find his sister, under the cover of going to a political event in New Seren or New Seran. I don't know what it's like, or what it's pronounced like. And in the meantime, he says that Marasi can go find the spike. Steris invites herself along. Wax refuses. Again, he says no to a lot of things. Wax refuses. But Vendel actually convinces him alongside Steris because they both think that it will be suspicious to go to a political event without your wife, or your wife to be in his case. Although Wax is hesitant because of the impending danger he thinks he finds himself in. Vendel comes back with train tickets a bit later on, and he actually asks Wayne for his bones because apparently Bloodmaker's bones are very interesting to conjure. After that interaction, we see Wax inviting Wendell along. Wendell also says no because he doesn't like the field. The only thing he does have left to give is an earring. And that's of course one of the earrings that Harmony has made for his for the people that he oversees to put in so he can talk to them. Of course, Wax is still angry at Harmony and he refuses. But there we have chapter 4 of part 1, which concludes also part 1. Wayne does head off on a quest of his own before finishing chapter 4, going to Renette and actually telling her that he has moved on. Something which he promised to Marasi in chapter 2. So he gets to her house and he tells her it's a huge relief, and she actively goes to him and shakes his hand, something which he's not used to. So he flinches, thinking that she will punch him in the face. He does screw it up after because he implies having a threesome with Renette and her girlfriend of 15 years, I think, so it's been a long time. But yeah, he goes off after reminding her that everything's good that happened, and he gives her a little gift. I think it's a wallet. It's a new wallet, I think, that he gave her. But not really that important, I think, now. Maybe later, I don't know. But there's probably a reason that this chapter or this scene was included in this last chapter of part 1, which was, as I've already said, essentially Act 3 of part 1, having chapter 1 and the prologue being Act 1, chapter 2 and 3 being Act 2, and then the tying everything up in a nice bow was chapter 4 of part 1. It's a very clear structure. It's very well written as well. Not really the prose, because we all know Sanderson is good, not great at prose. But structure-wise, it's a testament to his editors that they made such a clear structure in such a short amount or small amount of pages. It's also good to see Wayne grow as a character and to see him maintaining his sketchy old trickster vibe. Not really. He's still the same man at his core, but he has grown, he has evolved, which is good actually. It really gets him out of the sidekick role and more into the buddy cop, I think is the correct term. I don't really know if the hierarchy is correct in this one, but you know what I'm trying to say. Of course, Wax has his issues with Harmony refusing the earring. I mean, we can't blame him, Harmony making him shoot Lessie, his love and his first wife, which was casually mentioned as well. I forgot to tell you this. We never knew that they were married, but apparently this is his second wedding. Steris is his second wife, so that was something that it was a throwaway line which really caught me off guard. I didn't expect Wax to be married, or to have been married, with her being dead and all, especially to a Contra. So that's a nice little retcon there. But the second marriage also means a lot to him because he does really care about Steris. It's shown in multiple ways, and also considering that he mentions that he wants to go through with the wedding is one of the most obvious ways that he shows us he's really fond of her. And I think that about wraps it up. Marassi also being a very strong character, getting her own storyline and being actually prioritized over Wayne is something that on one hand surprised me, on the other hand it didn't, because Wayne and Wax, if Vendel had asked Wayne, probably Wax would have said no as well, because they're two sides of the same coin. So Marassi actually getting the opportunity to grow as a character and to shine as a person, hero and character by Sanderson means he has got a lot of trust in her as a character. So yeah, I'm excited to see this, because this probably means that she will be important in this book, but probably also in The Lost Metal, which will be coming out November 15th, I think, I'm not sure. Something like that. Also, of course, what I haven't mentioned yet in this general summarization is the magic system. In Mistborn it was great in Era 1, and it was built upon in Era 2, the first two books, and now with Bands of Mourning it is even more well-rounded and versatile than it already is, which stems me both hopeful and happy for this book and the next book, but also very excited because there will be an Era 3 and I can't wait to see how it evolves, because by then it will probably be more science or more scientific than it is magic, because magic is essentially science that we don't understand yet. So I think maybe Brandon will try to strike a resemblance there. But yeah, I love this part 1. Every person growing, a bit more insight in Wax's past as well, with him having to kill a man at 14, 15, that can really mess you up. And some nice throwbacks as well. I mean, not really throwbacks, but it made, having read those books so close together, made me make a connection between this and the previous book, in which he visits his grandma, and the guards just say, "Whoa, it's Wax, is that really him?" Because, he was probably the only killer in the last, 45 years, give or take. It helps me see Wax in an entirely different light. I mean, from the perspective of the Terraceman, he's very intimidating, having the Twinborn powers, being a bit shunned as well because they're scared of Twinborns, with the Lord Ruler being not really a Twinborn, but being an artificial Twinborn, put it that way. And of course, next to Marassi, Wayne and Wax, there is Steris, who has grown as well as a character, not minding the danger and really wanting to be with her husband when he goes on a quest. It's a nice start to Steris' arc. It's also a nice start to this story, to a hopefully great book. But yeah, for the moment I'm at chapter 12 or 11. I think I just finished chapter 11 and started chapter 12, and I have to say, the book keeps getting better. The progress is real. I don't have a lot of information for you at the moment if everything will be worth it, because I'm not there yet. I think I'm at about 1/3 of the book in total. But yeah, it has delivered on its promise for the time being. Let's put it that way. Next video will probably be chapters 5 up to and including chapter 10, which make up about half of chapter 2, of part 2, excuse me. Also, give or take a few pages, maybe, I don't know, I haven't made the exact page count, but I just took the chapters and split them up into 2. So yeah, this will be sometime maybe on Friday, but if it's not out on Friday, it will be out next Monday. So yeah, you have about a week to read chapters 5 up to and including to 10, so I mean, you can read as much as you want, but I will be discussing chapters 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 next week. I hope to see you all then. Have fun reading. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.